Hey everyone, welcome. In this episode, I'm going to answer the question of what is diabetes? I'm going to go over the main types of diabetes. We're going to review some statistics, some risk factors, and I'm going to give you some interesting history that I think everyone's going to really enjoy. So before I answer the question, I was curious to know, were other people informed about diabetes? So I went around to local businesses and I asked some strangers to see what they know. Let's see how it goes. In your own words, what is diabetes?
It's a disease affecting many people due to sugar highs and lows, and that's about what I know about it.
I know it affects the eyes, but I don't know exactly what it is.
Diabetes is a renal failure. I believe that's what it is. Is that correct?
We'll talk about it.
Okay. Let's see what diabetes. I'm trying to think here. Diabetes. I should know this answer because I'm a stage 2 or class 2.
Type 2?
I test. Yeah, type 2. I test for myself.
Awesome.
For my own sugar, it's for type 2 diabetes. I do my own sugar right now, so it's not kidney, it's pancreas.
What I have. It's where your sugar imbalance is off in the blood, like you either intake too much for glucose or not enough.
Do you know anybody with diabetes?
My friend's husband.
Anybody else? Or is that it?
I think my grandpa used to have it.
Well, I got a son that's got it.
A couple.
Couple? All right, great. I think our volunteers did great. So diabetes is really a disease where our body can't make enough insulin or just doesn't utilize the insulin, which is a hormone that allows glucose or sugars into our body cells to use for energy. So I wanted to give everyone a little bit of history regarding diabetes. And the more formal way of saying diabetes would be diabetes mellitus, or sometimes people say mellitus. I'm not sure which way it's supposed to be pronounced. I just say mellitus, so work with me. But diabetes comes from a Greek word meaning to siphon or pass through. And mellitus comes from a Latin origin meaning honeyed or sweetened. So to pass through, honeyed or sweetened. Let's break that down a little bit more. Diabetes has been known about for a long time. It's been known for over 3,500 years in ancient Egypt. There's been recordings of people losing a lot of weight, frequently urinating, and ultimately losing a lot of energy. Even though they didn't have a name for it, it was still pretty problematic, and unfortunately, they probably couldn't manage it, and they often would just kind of pass away. Historically, diabetes has been referred to as the pissing evil. In ancient India, people would take the urine of someone who they believed had the disease and place it next to an ant colony. If the ants were attracted to the urine and feed off of it, well then they knew it had sugar. In ancient Greece, a physician named Aratus had recordings that people affected had sugary urine and tasted sweet. And I wrote a skit, and I imagine it went a little like this. Come in.
Hi, Dr. Ratius. I brought you my sample.
Oh, yep, yeah, thank you. I'm hoping, you'll start to feel a little bit better. There's going to be a potluck at the Acropolis, so, if you start feeling better, eating a little, I hope you can join us. The whole town, or the whole city's going to be there. So I'll see you hopefully next week, all right?
Okay.
Looks like the sauce. I've had worse. We need to do some more testing. Don't judge me. Who likes lemonade warm? Oh yeah, that's sweet. So my historian said that I'm about 95% accurate with that reenactment. I did lie about one thing. It wasn't lemonade, it was Gatorade. My bad. So moving on. All right, so let's talk a little bit what's happening inside our body. I'm going to go to the whiteboard to help explain this. So here's our pancreas, all right? And we talked about the importance of the pancreas. It's the organ that makes insulin, that hormone that really opens up our body cells to have sugar go in it. And it's a fairly small organ, and it sits behind our stomach in the middle of our abdomen. I know the images aren't to size, but the general shape is there. And again, I apologize that the pancreas kind of looks like, Nick, just don't say phallus, an erect penis. Don't blame me. I'm just saying, from a general observation, being from the medical background, it looks like an erect penis. Anyways, we know the pancreas makes the hormone called insulin. And so insulin usually gets secreted or let out after we see food getting digested. So we eat food, in particular foods that contain sugar, or another fancy word would be carbohydrates, where we break them down into sugars, which is energy. So it starts to get broken down in our stomach, and then it gets put into our gut. So these little diamonds are glucose or energy, and the green keys is the hormone insulin. As the small intestine starts absorbing glucose, the pancreas is going to start making insulin to help control the sugar levels in our blood. So again, small intestine dumping sugar into our bloodstream. Pancreas picks up that the blood sugars are going up, and so it makes more insulin to counteract that, until eventually our circulatory system transports all the nutrients for the cells and kind of puts it on its doorstep right here. So this is one cell, and what needs to happen for glucose to get into the cell to use it for energy, we need this single key to get onto an insulin receptor, and what it does is it tells the cell to open up the doorways. And here we have a glucose transporter. It allows the glucose to get inside the cell, and then you have a happy cell. Unfortunately, if you have diabetes, maybe the insulin key isn't working properly, or it's not connecting properly, or you're not making enough insulin from the pancreas to meet all the needs or the sugar coming into your body. Let's just take away some insulin keys. Now we start getting a buildup of sugar, and again, this is what we're trying to avoid when we're managing diabetes. So let's talk about different types of diabetes. So using my handy dandy whiteboard, we have a couple different main types of diabetes. The first one I want to talk about is type 1. So type 1 is more autoimmune related, meaning our immune system that normally protects us attack the cells in the pancreas that make insulin, and so they lose the ability to make insulin and are dependent on taking insulin shots to manage their blood sugars. Whereas type 2 is just a decline in insulin production over time, or the body's inability to utilize insulin correctly through a lot of different mechanisms. And prediabetes is not technically diabetes being diagnosed, it's a state of elevated blood sugars, but they don't reach the point where they can call it diabetes. And oftentimes, the provider will recommend lifestyle interventions like changes in diet or activity to really help manage those elevated blood sugars. One thing that I would like to say is that what they all have in common is elevated blood sugars. So it's working with your doctors and educators to figure out how do you manage your elevated blood sugars. So as far as the numbers go, in the United States, we have over 34 million individuals living with diabetes. About 5 to 10% of those individuals have type 1 and the rest type 2. And in the CDC in 2018 speculated that over 80 million individuals have prediabetes, which is hugely significant. That's a lot of people. So some of the risk factors of developing prediabetes or even going into type 2 diabetes would be any adult over the age 45, maybe they're above their ideal target weight. It could be that they're smoking, they come from a family history of having diabetes, they have an ethnic background of maybe Black, Native American, Latino or Hispanic, Asian American. So there's a lot of them out there, and I would like to add a link down in this summary below. So if you click on that, you can take a quick quiz at the CDC site in figuring out if you're at risk. Well, that's all I have for you today. We talked about what is diabetes. We asked strangers. We learned a little brief history about diabetes. We talked about risk factors. We talked about some statistics in the United States. We even talked about the basics of role of insulin and glucose into the cell. So a lot to talk about. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. If not, hopefully you got a laugh. And if you didn't get a laugh, I'm sure you got a cringe. I'm sure you cringed a little bit. If you do like it though, I hope that you consider subscribing, sharing to friends. Please comment below and say hi and tell me what you like or what you didn't like. I'd really appreciate it. And stay tuned, there's more to come.